Did you know that a neighborly feud over 2 inches of grass could turn into a full-blown corn maze? You won't believe what happened next. But first, tell us in the comments where you're from. We love connecting with our viewers and hearing where our stories are reaching. I opened my mailbox to find a letter from the HOA that shattered my day. "Good morning," it read. "Your grass is taller than the allowed height." I stared in disbelief. My yard wasn't an overgrown jungle. It was a well-kept space for my kids to play. I had always been proud of my lawn. What did I do to deserve this? I couldn't let this slide, so I went outside, measuring my grass with a tape measure. To my shock, it was exactly the right height. That's when I knew I had to take a stand against this madness. When I confronted Susan, the HOA president, it escalated quickly. "This yard is unacceptable," she snapped, her eyes narrowing. "It brings down our property values." I was flabbergasted. "Really?" I kindly pointed out how tidy my yard looked compared to my neighbors. She crossed her arms and raised an eyebrow, glaring at me. Whatever I said didn't matter. Her mind was made up. My blood boiled with anger. I knew I had to challenge her. I wasn't just fighting for my yard. I was fighting for everyone in the neighborhood who felt suffocated by unreasonable rules. Just as I thought I could brush this off, I received a fine that turned my frustration into fury. I felt humiliated. How could they fine me for something so trivial? I started looking around at my neighbors. I wasn't the only one under attack. They all whispered in hushed tones about Susan's tight leash on the community. Inspired, I gathered my courage and approached them, suggesting we plan a meeting. Together, we could confront the HOA and show them we wouldn't be pushed around anymore. In our brainstorming session, creativity flowed well for the most part. Most ideas didn't go beyond the "let's launch a petition" trope. But then I threw out a wild thought. What if I create a corn maze in my yard? The group erupted in laughter, but as I explained further, their faces shifted from amusement to intrigue. Finally, someone exclaimed, "That would show her!" Suddenly, I had allies. Everyone rallied around my outrageous idea, and we got to work, believing it could flip this situation on its head. Armed with my newly created corn maze concept, I went to the local farmers to gather resources. The excitement was contagious. I planted the corn, not caring that it might ruffle a few HOA feathers. As the temperature warmed up, little sprouts broke through the ground. I could feel the thrill of potential change. But then I heard unsettling gossip about Susan's plans to inspect the neighborhood for code violations. My heart sank. Would she come after my maze? I knew I had to finish the layout before she arrived. The day of the inspection arrived. A wave of anxiety surged through me. I was doing my best to conceal the growth of my corn maze, feeling like I was hiding a rebellious secret. Susan strolled through the neighborhood, clipboard in hand. My palms were clammy. When she approached my yard, I held my breath, praying she wouldn't notice. "Well, this is a wild sight," she remarked, eyeing the properties suspiciously. Panicking, I invited her to check out my newly formed maze, hoping to charm her with my creativity. As Susan entered the maze, I waited, holding my breath. Her jaw dropped, but not in awe. She was appalled. "This is against HOA guidelines," she exclaimed. "You need a permit for this monstrosity." I couldn't believe it. She threatened me again. I felt frustration boiling over within me. I glanced at my neighbors hiding behind the fences, and I knew they shared my pain. Determined to prove her wrong, I turned to them for help, ready to make the maze not just an art piece, but also a declaration of our community spirit. While my neighbors rallied around me, I was thrilled as they began to post pictures of the maze online. It started to gain traction. Before I knew it, we were a trending topic in town. Susan was livid, and I could practically hear her cursing my name. The HOA sent out stern notices and threatened fines, claiming the maze was a public nuisance. That's when I announced we'd be having a grand opening for the maze, inviting the whole community. Susan could threaten all she wanted, but we were ready to showcase the joy we created. The grand opening was a triumph. Families strolled through the maze, laughter and cheer echoed in the air. I beamed with pride as kids raced around, their joy infectious. But just as I was reveling in my victory, Susan stormed the event, waving her arms. "This is illegal. You're all violating HOA rules." My heart dropped. Was she serious? I decided to stand my ground, inviting attendees to share their positive experiences. This was our chance to stand united against her relentless reign of terror. As the corn maze buzzed online, I began to witness our community rally around this creative endeavor. Local news stations started reaching out, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel like a win. However, Susan wasn't about to let this go easily. She placed calls to the media, trying to paint us as irresponsible homeowners disrupting the peace. Every negative word echoed in my mind like a drumbeat. I knew I needed to turn this around. I organized a meeting to discuss our next steps and protect the maze we had all fought so hard to create. The meeting was tense. My neighbors voiced their fears about fines and legal issues, their anxiety palpable. I stood at the front, trying to project confidence, but Susan's threats hung overhead like a dark cloud. "We're not breaking any rules," I insisted, but a silence fell, making me think I might be losing them. That's when I urged everyone to remember the joy our maze had already brought. A few neighbors spoke up, sharing heartwarming stories of children laughing and families bonding. I felt hope reignite within the room. When the attorney joined us, I felt a surge of confidence. She brought clarity and hope, pointing out that our events were within legal boundaries. Susan, however, wasn't buying it. The tension between us intensified, and I could see her simmering with anger. "This is going to change," she warned. "One way or another." I could feel the determination, but it came with a dose of anxiety. As the meeting ended, I knew we'd have to prepare for whatever she had planned next. We decided to host a safety event in the maze, a fun day to showcase how great our community could be. I was nervous but thrilled at the idea of turning the tables on Susan. As we prepared, locals jumped in, painting signs and organizing activities. The day arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. But then, right before the event, I overheard a conversation. Susan was lurking around, making complaints about potential dangers in the maze. I had to act fast. I rallied the team, reminding them our joy could drown out her negativity. As the safety event kicked off, families poured in, and the maze transformed into a colorful wonderland filled with laughter and cheers. I watched as kids ran through the corn, exploring, while parents sipped on freshly made lemonade. But just when things began to settle, I spotted Susan outside, clipboard in hand and a triumphant smirk on her face. My heart raced. Was she about to shut us down? I couldn't let that happen. I grabbed a few supporters and approached her, trying to keep the mood light while feeling the tension rise. I took a bold step and asked Susan to join us in the maze, promising she'd see how safe and enjoyable it really was. Was I out of my mind? As we walked through, I could see her demeanor slowly shifting. The joy around us began to chip away at her stern exterior, a hint of a smile creeping onto her face. But just as the moment felt perfect, she whispered her threat. "I still have my ways." Panic swept over me, and I knew we still had a long fight ahead of us. All of a sudden, social media exploded with posts praising our event, and it gained traction fast. People were sharing stories, taking photos, and even filming live videos. But right as I felt victory within reach, Susan retaliated with a letter detailing more fines aimed at my events and the maze. My heart sank as I read it. I sensed this was her final attempt to regain power. I turned to my neighbors, sharing my fears and asking if they'd stand with me. Their eyes were resolute. They were ready to fight back. The next board meeting loomed ahead like a thundercloud. I gathered myself to present our case, rallying the troops around me. "We need to show them we are a community," I urged. As I stepped up to speak, my hands shook slightly. Susan held that clipboard with her familiar scowl, and my heart raced. "We're not just here for fun. We're building community," I declared, my voice growing stronger. A few supportive cheers erupted, but would it be enough to sway the rest of the board? Things took a sharp turn when Susan, power-hungry as ever, claimed the maze was a safety hazard. She had enlisted a few of her loyalists to back her up, and I felt the blood rush from my face. My neighbors stood beside me, ready to speak out. Once again, I shouted, "This maze has brought us together." One by one, families shared their stories, surprisingly rising against Susan. Yet, was it enough to turn the tide? I felt a mix of hope and lingering dread as the meeting drew to a close. The election day was finally here, and the anticipation was palpable. I took a deep breath. We had campaigned relentlessly, knocking on doors and ensuring every neighbor knew they could vote for change. My heart raced as I stood at the voting booth. Just then, I caught a glimpse of Susan glaring across the room with a smug expression. Was she waiting for a moment to sabotage our efforts? I quickly focused back on my task, casting my vote with determination. The community deserved better. We could finally break free from her grasp. As the votes were counted, I could hardly bear the tension in the air. Each tally felt like a heartbeat in the room, thumping louder and louder. Suddenly, a neighbor exclaimed, "We won!" Cheers erupted as the realization set in. We had taken back control, but Susan's face remained stone cold. "You can't celebrate yet," she huffed, her voice dripping with disdain. I knew she wouldn't give up easily. This was only the beginning. As everyone celebrated, her final threats lingered in my mind. Our peaceful victory felt precarious, and I was ready for whatever she had in store for us next. After Susan's ousting from her position, it felt like a celebration had begun in our community. But beneath the surface, tensions were still palpable. I started taking on more responsibilities, coordinating events and encouraging everyone to work together. Susan seemed to fade into the background, but whispers reached me that she was plotting a comeback. "She's just waiting for the right moment," warned one neighbor. My heart raced. I knew that the peace we had fought so hard for could be disrupted once more. We had to stay on guard. The last thing we wanted was to reopen old wounds. One evening, I received an unexpected phone call from Susan. I was taken aback. "What do you want?" I asked skeptically. She insisted on meeting to discuss the future of the neighborhood. My gut told me it was a trap, but curiosity won. I agreed to meet. At the cafe, she walked in with a determined expression, dressed in a simple blouse, looking less fierce than usual. I braced myself for a confrontation. "I'm here to propose a new start," she said. Could this be genuine, or was it another scheme to regain her authority? As Susan laid out her vision, I listened closely. She spoke about organizing community gardens and events together. While I wanted to believe her, my guard remained firmly up. "You expect us to just forget everything?" I shot back. She sighed, clearly frustrated. "I can't change the past, but am willing to make amends." My heart wavered. Was there any way she could actually change? The stakes were high, trust is hard to regain. Would my neighbors be open to this? I shared Susan's proposal with my neighbors during our next meeting, and the room buzzed with mixed emotions. Some were eager, while others raised skeptical eyebrows. "This is a ploy," one neighbor shouted. Tensions flared, and the frustration of the past bubbled back to surface. I stood up, urging everyone to take a step back. "Look, if this could lead to improved relations, why not give it a chance?" I felt the pressure mounting. Would we be able to unite? Or was Susan's presence already tearing us apart again? We finally decided to go ahead with forming a joint committee, but I made sure to include checks and balances. "This isn't a free pass," I told Susan firmly. "We're holding you accountable." At the first joint committee meeting, a few neighbors expressed doubt, while others were surprisingly enthusiastic, presenting innovative ideas. I felt a mix of apprehension and hope. Susan sat quietly, observing, her eyes focused. As we brainstormed, I couldn't help but feel the tension in the air. The moment we let our guard down could lead to disaster, and I was determined to keep everyone in check. As the months rolled on, the first joint event was finally scheduled. Susan's commitment to cooperation showed promise, and the community garden took shape. I was amazed by the turnout. It felt like the fight with Susan was becoming a distant memory. Families shared laughter over planting seeds, creating bonds while digging in the earth. Just as I thought we were reaching an unprecedented level of trust, a small group voiced their unease. "Is this too good to be true?" they questioned. Their concerns echoed in my mind. Would this fragile unity hold? As everything seemed to be falling into place, an unexpected twist knocked the wind out of our sails. A significant storm rolled in overnight, destroying parts of the garden. My heart sank as I surveyed the damage. Susan looked devastated. "This was our chance," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I felt a sense of dread creeping back in. Would the storm tear us apart again? Could we rise from this setback and prove we were truly united? With our community in crisis, I knew it was my responsibility to rally everyone together once more. We quickly organized a restoration day, urging everyone in the neighborhood to help rebuild. The moment we stepped outside, however, I was hit with disbelief. Some residents began blaming Susan for the destruction, whispering about her past leadership. Confusion and frustration swirled in the air as I tried to calm tempers. "We're all in this together. Let's not focus on blaming," I urged, but doubts lingered. Felt like we were hanging by a thread. In that moment, I realized my role was bigger than just maintaining the maze. I needed to mediate and keep unity alive. Against all odds, on Restoration Day, I watched as neighbors banded together, lifting spirits while cleaning up the mess. Laughter returned as we planted new seeds with a shared purpose. Susan moved amongst the group, helping and sharing her own story of resilience. There was a moment when I saw a glimpse of the old Susan, the one who wanted to create community. My heart swelled. Could we genuinely move past our differences and forge a new future together? As the day ended, we stood together, uncertain yet hopeful. As the sun set, casting a warm glow over the newly planted garden, I reflected on how far we'd come. Community gatherings became more frequent, and our collective spirit flourished. We faced challenges, but we were evolving. I looked at the maze one last time. It had transformed into an emblem of unity. However, as I turned to head home, I spotted a letter in my mailbox from Susan. My heart raced. Did she have another surprise in store for us? Would these new changes really stick? I couldn't wait to uncover what awaited us next. As we stood among the scattered debris of our once thriving garden, I realized this journey was never just about a corn maze or a petty feud. It was about finding the strength to rebuild together, no matter the obstacles. So, what are you willing to fight for to protect your community? Let us know in the comments.